Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. My name is James David. At this particular video, I'm actually sharing on what is actually happening on my balcony garden, especially these particular ones are the sets for the succulent plants collection. I have done an earlier video on this, very much earlier, and this is sort of like about 3 years in a way to say the development has taken place. There are some plants that did not do well, and there are some that actually have surpassed its growth measure and is thriving very well. I have not yet put on the identification of all the types of succulents that is set here, but perhaps I will do so, see if I have the time. But basically, this is very much more on the light and easy, on the factor of therapeutic, of seeing the garden and enjoying the view of the collection that I have managed to collect and grow them here. And I would like to share some of my input here in this particular video. I hope you enjoy this particular sets and collection, and I would rather say my rant and my thoughts or in any way my comments on how I actually took care of this. And I hope you could pick up some of the values and some of the tips along the way in my explanation. Now, I want to say and mention here that I have not purchased these succulents for a very expensive price. And if you were to believe me, this is actually a very small pot. And these are actually sold for 3 plants for RM 10 ringgit. And I find that these types seems to be the hardy types. And of course, I must tell you that it's very much trial and error. Some of these did not actually survive after a few years, especially the ones that seems to be sensitive, and somehow I find that once they started to have a leaf drop and the whole thing collapses. However, there are some that actually done very well, and those are the ones that I have managed to cultivate. So these are the things that I want to make an emphasis here when I showcase to you the ones that I have collected in this collection. Another thing that I would like to make an emphasis here is that one of my experiments here, I've actually planted a small begonia plant here in a succulent set. And lo and behold, if you were to notice later on, that this particular small plant has actually grown very well in a succulent collection setting, in the way to say that very limited watering and more on the type of potting media that is being grown here together with the succulent set. I have recently added these hanging pots here. These are the cascading types. Just want to give some features here, and I found that they do very well, sort of like a very shaded garden area. Do take note that these do not receive direct hot sun on this particular place, so somehow these are reflected light, and I think I can safely say the brightest time that they actually receive a very good reflected sunlight, it's say about 8 hours in a day. So these do very well in most challenging places, but I find that the succulents, in a way, I can say that they are quite hardy, especially these hanging types. So my tip number one is actually the potting mix or the potting media. Here basically I have actually experimented and I find that one of the most important thing when it comes to succulent is the drainage factor, and I find that over the years, later on say about 3 to 5 years time, as we water them constantly, say once a week or 2 weeks once, the potting media seems to become into a condensed kind of a version where it gets harder and it actually stops the roots from breathing, and this is why most of the succulents don't seems to do well. So what I'll do here, I'll actually do a reset, say about 3 years or 1 year, depending on the condition of the plant that is growing. Because sometimes I find that I would love to receive this cascading effect where the plants actually grows extended to the roof factor. Hence, so if I want to reset them, I will have to cut and repot and replant. It's sort of in a way challenging on my side, is because I'll end up having more plants and not enough space to grow them. So I try my best to grow them as natural and as authentic as possible in this setting. So I want to share to you on my potting media. So the top part of it is basically river sand, and the middle part of it is very much any of the garden soil, that more on the 3-in-1 mix kind of thing, and the bottom part of it is heavy drainage. So on my side, the heavy drainage that I actually use will be more on leca balls or anything, or pebbles or anything like that, just to give enough support and weight, so that in case there is a strong windy day, this particular pot doesn't swing and fall into my from my balcony. Because there are days that I come across that heavy rain and strong wind fall may actually cause this particular pots to fall down from this support. Another factor on watering here is that I do refrain myself from watering. So it would be most likely on a very hot and dry day, I will water them, say a minimum of once a week, and may have extended on the days where it is 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on the weather. If there is a case where it is a rainy days and it's like constantly raining on a daily basis, I will minimize on the watering, looking at the soil mix, because I find that these are very much prone and sensitive to root rot. So lesser is better. But of course, there's another context to it, in a sense that my duration of time in watering will be more like once a week. That is my most minimum, in a way to say, simply because I keep them dry until to the next watering. So if they are actually still in a soaking wet kind of a position, they are actually prone to have a root rot, which cannot be reversed, and the whole thing will collapse. There are cases where I've come across where the roots have totally gone, in a way to say, rotten to the core, but on the top part of the plant appears to be green. So unless there are new roots appearing from those succulent stem, the plant is actually a goner, because sometimes these rotting factors has a lot to do with fungus infection or bacterial infection, which may not be good for the plant. And there's another thing, a setback on this here, is to attend to it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the whole thing may spread to other plants. So here I've actually set it as more on a community plant kind of thing. It is due to space factor, because I find that I don't have much space, and I also like the factor where grouping all the plants together to give that kind of landscape look. And these are the things that I've actually accomplished over time on the experiments, and I find that these do well in these settings. Again, I have experience where time to time some plants do not do well after certain months, so sort of like they do have their expiry date kind of thing. Then hence when they I have grown much and longer, I do trim and repot them back, otherwise I might lose that particular species. But one of the most greatest challenges I face, apart from root rot, is actually pest problems. And most of the times that I actually encounter are those of the scale insect type. And somehow these love on the Sansevieria leaves, and somehow that is actually farmed by ants. So there is some sort of like a symbiotic kind of attachment between farming ants with mealybugs and these scale insects. And when I do attend to it using a wrong pesticide, it somehow is detrimental to the plant, where the whole thing becomes stressed and the whole plant dies. I've actually had one of these very difficult moment in years of actually figuring out the best pesticide for it, because some of the pesticides are not strong enough to actually eradicate them, and manually eradicating them using fingers and like scraping them off actually does more damage, more harm in that sense. So I do find that whenever I see ants, it's not a good telltale sign. So I do actually found one of the pesticide that is sold in Shopee and Lazada, one of the online shops that actually sell a kind of a red powdered form, kind of what do you call that kind of pesticide that actually goes into the plant. Hence, the plant is sort of like poison to this pest, and so therefore these are actually slowly eradicated throughout a few weeks time. So I find that that seems to be far more effective than anything else. Recently, I found a new type of pest. This particular one, our writers say it's a kind of a contention, because these are actually caterpillars where constantly see butterflies seems to be coming and laying eggs on this particular type of succulent. So it is sort of like a challenge for me is that I don't want to remove these caterpillars, because it's sort of like I do love the balance in the ecology, but they do a lot of harm and damage, especially when it comes to feeding. They actually eat the whole plant. It's not the leaf kind of thing. So the whole thing get decimated. So it is quite challenging. So I find that depending on the circumstance, it's of course also it's very seasonal. It doesn't really happen a lot. So somehow I'll just let it happen and let them have their feast on it. And one of the things that I find that it's sort of like it works best for me is that I have actually put up the same species on a hanging basket above, hence whichever butterflies that actually comes on the feeding and laying and or I say breeding themselves in the population of butterflies, I allow them to do so when they are actually sort of like feeding above in that sense lah. So the ones that is actually on the bottom kind of thing, I normally will remove and place them above on those pots. Here I want to showcase to you what I currently having now. As this is now after 3 years. The earlier portion of the video is more of 3 years of duration of time, and you can clearly see the growth of these particular plants, and you can see the succulent and the cactus and all the other plants have sort of overgrown the pot. And this was actually my intention. I want to have a natural look on it and a kind of an appearance where it cascades just exactly as I envisioned them to be. You can also notice that the clumps of all those succulents have as now cascade now towards the balcony. And this is one of the inspiration that I saw in one of the gardens in Spain, where they actually have a balcony garden, and all these cascading succulents actually come down. It's sort of like a weeping kind of effects. Here I want to make an emphasis on the type of fertilizer that I use for this set. Basically, way back then I used to use foliar fertilizer, where I often use a mixture of a flowering uh, liquid fertilizer plus a root hormone fertilizer. Somehow I find that I seems to be overdoing it. And also I've experienced way back then when I have over fertilized it, and sort of that has become a very heavy kind of acidity and even toxic kind of situation, where the whole pot gave way because it was too much of strength on it, and the whole plant died. So a lot of experiments that I work with, and so far the best that I find that is convenient for me is this slow releasing type of fertilizers. So this particular one, if you notice that is slow releasing type, basically it actually uh, works in a way where when you water it, it will release the nutrients to the soil, and once it's dried, it will stop. So it actually works best on a moisture retaining kind of element. So this actually works well when it comes to a dry medium as such as this, because the watering is limited, hence it's not over fertilized, and it does not actually burn the root ball. So normally I will water them where this fertilizer here is, in a way that if you can see is just soil patch area. So my focus is more of keeping the the medium wet rather than pouring the water on the plants. Hence, I've come to the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think I will make another video on identifying the types of succulent that works best in this setup, and I hope that you've enjoyed this particular video. If you find any queries and you would like to know, please do put them in a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer them as my best ability as possible, and hope to hear from you soon. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.